Hi, my name is Miguel Sebastian, and I'm going to present an outline of my paper, Experiential Awareness. Do you prefer it to me? This presentation is not thought as a substitution for reading the paper. So if you are interested in what I say here, I invite you to read the full paper. Before starting the presentation, let me thank Richard Brown for the great job organizing the conference, and also to Rocco Gennaro, Robert Lourdes, and Kent Wilford for their comments. So what is this paper about? This paper is about experiential awareness, the kind of awareness that seems to be essential to our conscious experiences. And the aim of the talk is twofold. On the one hand, I want to call the attention to a distinction that I think has been ignored in the analytic tradition between what I will call self-involving theories and mental state-involving theories, and argue in favor of the former. This distinction is, I believe, orthogonal to the current discussion between higher-order theorists and first-order ones. On the other hand, I want to offer the very basics of a characterization of a self-involving theory in first-order terms. So let's start and enjoy. Conscious experiences have a subjective dimension. Undergoing them feels some way, or borrowing Nagel's expression, it is like something for me to undergo them. The way it is like for me to have the experience is the phenomenal character. Theories of consciousness aim at offering a comprehensive account of phenomenal character. I think that one interesting way of facing this task is a divide and conquer one that begins by making a conceptual distinction between two components of phenomenal character and the two associated problems. On the one hand, a theory of qualitative character accounts for what it is like for me to undergo the experience, the concrete way it feels to undergo it. In this sense, the qualitative character is what distinguishes, for example, the kind of experience I have while looking at a red apple from the one I have while looking at the blue sky. On the other hand, a theory of subjective character explains what it is like for me to undergo the experience. It abstracts from the particular way having different experiences feel and concentrates on the problem of what makes it the case that having a conscious experience feels at all. So, the qualitative character is what makes a state the particular kind of phenomenally conscious state it is, and the subjective character what makes it a phenomenally conscious state at all. This paper is about this latter aspect. Conscious experiences differ in a relevant sense from other kinds of states. Conscious experiences are not states that merely happen in me, states that I merely host, as the beating of my heart or subpersonal states, but states that are for me. This is the problem of the subjective character. In having an experience, as say a red apple, I am not merely aware of some features of the apple, but somehow aware of having the experience. It is often assumed that we can understand any form of awareness as some form or other of representation. I will grant this assumption in this paper and focus on the kind of representation required to make sense of this subjective character. Conscious experiences require a certain form of self-representation, broadly understood in a way that makes room for higher theories. My aim in this paper is to explore the logical space for understanding the required sense of self-representation and the problem of the subjective character of experience in such a way. Until very recently, higher theories were the only game in town aiming at offering a full-fledged account of this experiential awareness within the analytical tradition. Based on the idea that a conscious state is a state whose subject is aware of being in, higher theorists explain the difference between conscious and non-conscious states by appealing to a higher order awareness. Conscious states are the object of some kind of higher order process or representation. There is something higher order, a meta state, in the case of phenomenal conscious states,
which is lacking in the case of other kind of states. On the other hand, first-order theories have typically focused on the problem of qualitative character and being blamed by their opponents of either ignoring the problem of subjective character or failed to offer a comprehensive account of it. In order to provide an alternative theory to higher-order ones, one would have to be able to construct self-representation in first-order terms. It is, independently of the former debate, ambiguous how we should unpack the notion of self-representation. The expression M is self-representational can mean either that M represents itself or that M represents the self. I will call self-involving theories those theories that maintain that a sense of self is required to characterize the correctness condition, namely the content of experience, and mental state involving those theories that maintain that it is merely the state itself what enters the content of experience. The distinction between mental state involving and self-involving theories is clearly orthogonal to the one between first-order and higher-order theories. The following chart presents the logical space of self-representation that I'm offering and some philosophers that I think illustrate its position. I want to argue in favor of a self-involving position. I think that the best way to motivate the self-involving approach is by appealing to phenomenology itself. All my experiences have something phenomenological in common. They are, so to speak, marked as my experiences. Phenomenally conscious experiences happen for me, the subject that is having the experience, in an immediate way. They are implicitly marked as my experiences. All conscious experiences have in common their first personal character, a quality of for me-ness or me-ness. The phenomenological observation suggests that a certain form of self is constitutive of the phenomenal character of experience. In having an experience, a quality is presented to oneself. If experiential awareness is to explain the subjective character, and if it has to be unpacked as a form of representation, then the content of experience is not merely that such and such is the case, but that such and such is presented to the subject that enjoys the experience. It seems to be in the nature of experience that its correctness conditions concern the subject that is having the experience. In other words, the content of experience is de se. I think that this also makes it possible an understanding of consciousness in representational terms that can address the empirical evidence in favor of shifted spectrum as Shoemaker and Egan have shown. Self-involving theories have their roots in Husserl's writings. However, there hasn't been, to the best of my knowledge, any reductive attempt to elaborate on these ideas in the analytic tradition. When I was presenting the phenomenological observation, I noted that I experienced my experiences as mine. They are somehow for me. In having an experience, I attribute to myself the property of being presented with an entity with certain features. The experience is about the apple and, in a sense, also about myself. There is a big difference, however, between the sense in which these two elements are represented. Put in Wittgensteinian terms, my experience represents both the apple as an object and myself as a subject. This is precisely what de se content amounts to. What requires further clarification is the fact that the content of experience is de se, and how a mental state come to have such a content. Let me first get clear about what does it mean that the content of the experience is about myself as a subject. I like the view about mental content according to which the role of mental states is to distinguish between different possibilities. Contents of mental states are ways of dividing the space of possibilities. When I have a state with de se content, its correctness conditions do not merely concern the way the world might be, but also myself. and possible worlds are not well suited to capture its content. What we need are centered worlds. If a possible world is a way the world might be, a centered world can be thought as a way the world might be for an individual. Centered worlds do not just individuate a way the world could be, but also a certain logical position within this world. We can think of centered world propositions as functions from other pairs of worlds and individuals to truth value. To a first approximation, this idea can be expressed in ordinary English either by saying that in having an experience as of red, I attribute to the apple the disposition to cause an experience as of red in me, or by saying that in having an experience as of a red apple, I attribute to myself, I self-attribute, the property of being confronted with an object that has the disposition to cause experiences as of red in me. The next step to make sense of this proposal is to get clear about what kind of entities are individuals, self, or subjects of experience, and how the correctness conditions concern them in a way that is compatible with naturalistic theories of mental content. What we need is a metasemantic theory. Having states with they say content requires, to the very least, an ability to distinguish what is me from everything else. In the less demanding sense, the first person pronoun in the articulation of the content of experience above refers to a living body, an organism. So, if we think of the content of experience as a function from pairs of worlds and individuals to extensions, then individuals are nothing but living organisms. But what does it mean to represent organisms as subjects? One of the most appealing naturalistic metasemantic theory is telesemantics. According to it, a representing system is one that has the teleological function of indicating that such and such is the case, being such and such its content. The question is, how does a state come to have the function to indicate a centered property? In other words, how does a state come to have the say content? Organisms are continuously changing entities that remain nonetheless as a functional unity, as a unique system, during the organism life. A widespread view in biology holds that living organisms are self-maintaining systems. If organisms are self-maintaining systems, it seems reasonable to look for the mechanisms that guarantee the stability within the organism boundaries as the mechanisms that ground the distinction between what is part of the system and what is not. This distinction between what is me and what is not might also be justified by the phenomenological sense of unity of all my experiences as being present for the same individual or self. One interesting proposal in this direction is Damasio's notion of proto-self. With its help, we can sketch our model. On the one hand, the proto-self is a brain structure that has the function of indicating and regulating the homeostasis of the organism. It regulates the internal environment and tends to maintain the stable, constant condition required by the self-maintaining system, the stability that is required for life. On the other hand, the proto-qualitative state is a state that has the function of indicating a certain property. Different conscious states are constituted by different proto-qualitative states, but neither proto-qualitative states nor the proto-self constitute by their own phenomenally conscious states. It is the interaction between both of them what gives rise to a phenomenally conscious mental states that indicates that the property X is affecting the organism. At the level of content, this interaction will explain why the content of experience is they say. What is relevant for the mental state is not only the properties that the object of the experience, say the apple, has, that the apple is causing the activation of a certain neural network, the proto-qualitative state, but the fact that it is causing the activity of the neural network and that this neural network plays a relevant role in the homeodynamic regulation of a particular organism, the very same organism that the proto-self happens to regulate. The content is not just that the object is disposed to cause the proto-qualitative state, but that the object is disposed to cause the proto-qualitative states in me, in the very same organism that the proto-self regulates.
It is platitudinous that in having an experience, one is somehow aware of having it. The characterization of this relation underlies the problem of the subjective character of experience and is essential to any theory of consciousness. I have offered an orthogonal distinction to that between higher order and first order theories, between self-involving and mental state involving theories, and argue that what is phenomenologically manifest is the truth of the former. It is in the nature of the content of experience that its correctness condition concerns the subject that is having the experience. So the content of experience is de se. In order to have an alternative to higher theories, I have attempted to sketch in naturalistic compatible terms a characterization of such a de se content and the basics of a possible model of what it takes for a mental state to have a self-involving content. A model that I believe is supported by our current biological theories and the neurological evidence. So I hope that now you are a bit more interested in the topic so that you read the paper. And please join the discussion. Thank you very much.